Shocking video showing the moment ICE agents smashed a car window and forcibly removed a man in New Bedford. 29-year-old Juan Francisco Mendez has no criminal record and was...
Stop, ma'am, stop.
Definitely a chaotic scene on Eureka.
And the chair recognizes, and I appreciate the witnesses' indulgence here. Again, we were told the votes would be at 4:15, and they were at 3 o'clock, so I apologize. We had 2 more votes than we were supposed to. So the chair recognizes Mr. Burleson from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just still kind of trying to understand the connection between our ICE officers and the Gestapo. I think the statement was horrific. The acting ICE director had this to say: on the final day of National Police Week, when those brave enough to put on a badge and a uniform to mourn their fallen brothers and sisters, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz referred to my professional, hardworking ICE agents and officers as a modern-day Gestapo. This is abhorrent, dehumanizing, and ignorant comments should not be tolerated. It seems that Mr. Walz prefers violent criminal aliens are released into Minnesota's communities. If the governor doesn't like the laws, he's free to advocate that Congress change them, but he should refrain from putting ICE officers in danger by likening them to one of the most appalling groups in history. Assaults against ICE officers are up over 400% from this time last period. And part of that is because politicians like Governor Walz are careless with their politically motivated rhetoric. He should issue an immediate apology to the men and women protecting his communities. Governor Hochul, do you agree with the statements that Governor Walz said? Do you agree with the characterization that ICE agents are Gestapo?
I don't use language like that in describing anyone. My view is that we respect our law enforcement, but also in a case where people have gone too far, they should be called out.
Do you agree with that associating ICE officers with Gestapo?
It's not a word I would use, but I will say that I understand the sentiments that people feel.
Okay, well, thank you for being reasonable here. Next door, Governor Walz, is a group called, they're actually meeting here today, the Zionist Organization of America. And I spoke with Morton Klein, who is their national president, and he had this to say. He wanted me to read this to you. As a child of Holocaust survivors who lost almost my whole family to Gestapo Nazis, I find Governor Walz comparing Americans to ICE officials to Nazis a dramatic insult. Walz should be ashamed of himself, and I demand that he retract and apologize for this ugly, phony statement that diminishes the horror of the Holocaust. So I'm going to give you another chance, Governor Walz. Do you apologize for your comparison to ICE agents as Gestapo?
Thank you, Mr. Burleson. What I said is using a historical reference on authoritarianism, watching in my state and across this country,
Governor Walz, it's a simple question.
Covered faces.
Will you apologize to this Jewish community? Will you apologize to Jewish Americans?
I don't know Mr. Klein. I would certainly be glad to speak with him if he would.
Mr. Walz, let me ask you this question. Are there any events that you regret from actions of illegal immigrants in your state? Are there any events that come to mind that you think of that weigh on you?
I certainly think any something that harms someone.
So let me give you an idea. Minnesota, your state, April 25th, ICE arrested an illegal alien from Ecuador charged for criminal sexual conduct with a child. Again, in Minnesota, on May 8th, ICE arrested an illegal alien from Mexico for selling heroin, meth, and fentanyl. Mr. Pritzker, in Chicago, in 2018, an illegal alien from Mexico is charged with aggravated criminal sexual abuse of a minor, then was released back into the public in 2022. And then Governor Hochul in New York, again, a Mexican national was charged, but this time for slashing a victim with a machete, and then released in January of this year, all ignoring ICE detainers and federal warrant. Mr. Walz, would you deport any of these individuals?
Could you give the names of the individuals and what they're...
I can get those to you, but if these are true, if somebody from Ecuador was charged with criminal sexual conduct with a child, would you want that person deported?
If they followed through due process and were found guilty, certainly that's what we do now. We follow federal law.
You know, your state's refuse to honor ICE detainers, even for illegal aliens convicted of serious crimes like assault or sexual offenses. The ICE data shows that 56,791 illegal aliens booked for serious offenses in 2025 alone, including over 3,000 for sex crimes. And that's why we're here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes Mr. Crane from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Governor Waltz, you stated in your opening statement the following: but nothing Minnesota has done stands in the way of federal government managing its border security policy.
Okay.
Governor, I want to ask you, why are you lying to this committee?
I am not.
Who's the top law enforcement officer in the state of Minnesota?
The top law enforcement officer? Yep. Attorney General.
Yeah, that's right. What's his name? What's his name?
Are you asking me, do you know his name?
Do you know his name? Do you know his name?
I know the AG Ellison.
This is an article right here I'd like to submit for the record. Minnesota AG says will not enforce federal immigration laws as DOJ threatens to prosecute officials who resist.
Without objection, so ordered.
Why are you lying to this committee? That is the top law enforcement officer in your state who's saying he will not comply with the federal government.
Nothing in his opinion changes the fact that state law requires all state and county officials to ask for immigration status when a convicted felon.
No, I'm sorry, Governor. He is saying he will not comply with federal laws. That's your top law enforcement officer. You're lying and misrepresenting yourself to this committee. Now I want to ask you this. Do you think in that line of questioning, free health care, food assistance, free college tuition, driver's licenses, and cash assistance, do you think that that's helping or hurting this government manage its border security and policy?
Well, Minnesota ranks first in health care. We rank third in safety on our roads.
Let me answer that for you. It's actually hurting because what you created
safer and more prosperous.
Created a state that is now a magnet that is drawing illegals
There's no sanctuary law in Minnesota, Congress.
I know you guys haven't put it that way on the books, but your state has everything, every element in it that is consistent with the sanctuary state.
That's
Moving
incorrect.
on, Mr. Walsh. How about you calling ICE agents modern-day Gestapo? That also stands. Do you think that helps our federal government carry out its law enforcement?
I think best practices in law enforcement
policies?
by identifying who you are, identifying the vehicles, and making sure everyone has due process helps our law enforcement. I think covering your faces.
So you think that helps calling our law enforcement agents that? What does ICE stand for, Governor? Immigration, Custom Enforcement, right? These are the guys that are tasked with enforcing federal immigration
That's right,
laws?
that's their job. It's not the state's job.
You think that calling them Gestapo is helping? You're not standing in the way. None of the messaging, none of the rhetoric is standing in the way of this administration doing what they've been tasked to do. Is that what you're saying?
I think what would help them is to follow due process, and when they do these missions, do the things that we expect of law enforcement.
How about when you went on Anderson Cooper, Governor Walsh, and you said, how high is this wall? If it's 25 feet, then I'll invest in a 30-foot ladder factory. Do you think that helps our federal government carry out its law enforcement, its border security and policy operations?
When did I say that?
You went on Anderson Cooper and said that. Do you not remember saying that? Because you've said so many outlandish things that you can't even keep track of them.
The point being is
the clip is there for everybody. It's there for all Americans. If you guys want to go watch it, it's an easy Google. All right, Governor, you recently went on Gavin Newsom's podcast. You stated in regards to MAGA voters, I scare them a little bit, which is why they spend so much time on me. No, I'm serious because they know I can fix a truck. That's your direct quote. You also said on the show, I think I could kick most of their asses. I want to be very clear with you, Governor. You do scare us a bit. But it's not because you can fix a truck or change a tire. It's actually because of your radical left-wing agenda. You supported putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. You advocated for the disarming of Americans of their Second Amendment rights. You're pro-sanctuary city, as we have uncovered here today. You claim there is no guarantee to free speech when it comes to misinformation and hate speech. That right there is why the American people have such a hard time with you. It's not because we're crazy MAGA people. It's because of your radical left-wing agenda. I want to ask you on that last one where you claim there's no guarantee to free speech. Did you pick that up on one of your 30 trips to communist China, Governor? That sounds a lot like something that they would do. Yes or no?
So I don't believe hate speech has a place in there. Hate speech that incites violence.
Governor Walz, you said that Kamala Harris picked you for vice president to code talk to white guys. How did that work out for this administration? How well did you do with white guys?
I don't have the...
You lost by 22 points to white guys. And it's because you talk like the way you do, you say the things you do, and you have this radical left-wing ideology. So if you want to continue that rhetoric, go on, brother. Keep doing it. We'll keep destroying you in elections.
And
Thank you, and I yield back.
The people of Minnesota will continue to have me serve them.
Chair recognizes Mr. Ramirez from Illinois.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to start by acknowledging Governor Pritzker from our great state of Illinois and thank him for coming before the committee, especially given the deeply unserious nature of this hearing. I want to start by asking Governor Pritzker a few questions. Governor, you have said that actions that bring all branches of government to stand in respect of one another underpin the guardrails of democracy. Is it your assessment that this administration's actions reflect the commitment to stand in respect of all branches of government or honor the guardrails of our democracy?
Thank you very much, Congresswoman, and it's good to see you. This administration has ignored court orders. This administration has ignored the laws that have been passed by the Congress. This administration is, in many ways, telling its agencies not to follow what the laws and the regulations that have been on the books. And this administration has been going after people individually and as groups that they believe are opponents of theirs, political opponents of theirs. That is not the way that a president ought to operate. We ought to have a president who follows the rule of law and doesn't break it.
Thank you, Governor. I agree with you. In your 2025 budget address, you noted that our state, the state of Illinois, is among the best in the nation for workforce talent, clean energy, educational and scientific institutions, and more. I couldn't agree with you more. Our economy is over $1.1 trillion, the 5th largest in the U.S. and the 18th largest in the world. And I understand that we are one of only 9 states, including New York and Minnesota, whose taxpayers contribute more to the federal government than they receive. So I just want to make sure I put that to the record. This is who we're putting here at a hearing. Governor, earlier this year, you noted that the authoritarian playbook is laid bare here. They point to a group of people who don't look like you, and then they tell you to blame them for your problems. Governor Pritzker, do you believe that the Trump administration is using the authoritarian playbook, particularly as it relates to immigrant communities across the country?
It's clear when you look at every action that they've taken with regard to immigration since they've taken office, including going in and attacking our communities in the state of Illinois. I think in the first week in office, Tom Homan bringing Dr. Phil with him unseriously, and then bringing the very serious ICE officials in to break down doors, to scare communities, to keep people from going to work and so on. It is clear that they are targeting communities of people who don't look like them and going after people that they think are opponents of theirs, or
including United States senators, Governor.
Including, thank you, and Alex Padilla. And by the way, I want to say to all of you on both sides, but particularly those on the Republican side, that I cannot believe the disrespect that was shown to a United States senator who was thrown down, handcuffed, and not allowed to ask a question of our Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. That seems completely irrational.
Governor, I agree with you. And because I have a limited time, I actually want to show the footage because I think what you're saying has to be seen here. I'm going to ask now that we play a clip of Senator Padilla being wrongfully arrested while we're in this hearing. Go ahead and play it. A United States senator. I want to make sure that people see.
Get on my hands. Go ahead. Put me on my back.
All right. Cool. Hey, one hand. Lay flat. Lay flat.
Other hand, sir. Other hand.
There's no recording allowed out here. I do not know. There's no recording allowed out here for FBI, right?
They don't want you recording so that you don't see how they violate due process repeatedly. I want to make sure that you see that footage. This is a United States Senator asking a question of Secretary Noem, and in return, he is pulled from the press conference, shoved down to the floor, slammed to the ground with handcuffs, arrested for doing his job of oversight. So let me go ahead and make sure that I say this clear, because I serve in Homeland Security, and I can tell you for a fact they are weaponizing the government and the military against U.S. citizens to exert control and suppress dissent. I call that authoritarianism. We've seen it before. Here's the point: terror. That's what they're doing here. This hearing is a witch hunt against the governors that run successful cities, and we need to call it what it is. What we need here right now is Secretary Noem answering questions in oversight on why the hell she thinks that what happened to the senator is acceptable. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Hopefully you'll get to see the beginning of that tape when he approached the podium where the secretary was. You hadn't seen
to
that
ask
yet?
a question.
Mr. Chairman, on the full statement of the committee on the Democratic side, Senator Padilla is currently in Los Angeles exercising his duty to perform congressional oversight of the federal government operations in Los Angeles and across California. He was in the Wilshire Federal Building to receive a briefing with General Guillot and was listening to Secretary Noem's press conference. He tried to ask the secretary a question and was forcibly removed by federal agents, forced to the ground, as you saw, and handcuffed. He is not currently detained, and we are working to get additional information. And while we respect the Senate's ability to review this as a primary investigation, we also echo Ms. Ramirez's statement that we would like to have an investigation of that incident here from beginning to end.
You want to enter that into the record?
I do.
All right, without objection, so ordered. Now, Chair recognizes Mr. Jack. Okay, wait a minute. We did two Republicans, so we're going to go to Mr. Goldman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would urge you to reserve comment on what happened to Mr. Padilla until you get full information. In fact, I would urge all of my Republican colleagues to take a breath before you once again desperately run to bend the knee to Donald Trump and to Kristi Noem, because anyone with two eyes that can see that that was authoritarian, lawless behavior that no person in America, much less a senator conducting constitutional oversight, should have received. And I know it's hard for all of you to speak up against Donald Trump, and that's why we're here at this hearing talking all about Joe Biden, talking all about Joe Biden's policy this, Joe Biden's policy that, all these people who committed crimes under Joe Biden. Is it just because you're consistently trying to ignore the fact that Joe Biden is not president? Donald Trump is president. And what he's doing right now, which you all know, is he is going after people who are lawfully present. Now, I appreciate the governor's being here. I'm sorry you have to deal with this crap. Governor Hochul, especially, I want you to know, as a proud member of the delegation of your state, I am not going to use my 5 minutes to mount a campaign for governor against you, as my colleague from the North Country chose to do. I will give you the opportunity to actually answer some questions, unlike she did, and I will allow you to explain exactly what the policies in New York are as it relates to cooperation between the state and federal agents.
First of all, glad you're not running against me. Thank you. Secondly, I appreciate the opportunity to break through all the noise here today and to stop the talking points that keep mischaracterizing our policies in the great state of New York. New York is not a sanctuary or a haven for criminals. We devote an enormous amount of our energy working to keep New Yorkers safe. $2.5 billion I've allocated just in the last few years. We do cooperate with ICE when it comes to investigating or building a case against criminals. We do this all the time. And when someone goes through the criminal justice system in the state of New York, they do their time in prison. We alert ICE as to when, 30 days in advance of when they're to be removed, and we send them away. That's how it's supposed to work. But what we do not do under our laws is divert our essential resources to protect everyday New Yorkers from crimes themselves and have that help ICE with civil immigration enforcement. That is their job. That is the federal government's job. And we cannot be told to enforce federal laws. It's not constitutional.
Or to use all of your limited resources to spend all that time doing their job.
My concern is that every minute that ICE officers are going after moms and dads and kids and separating families, perhaps one more criminal is still out there at large.
Well, it's
Why
funny
don't you
say
focus
that.
on them?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I actually, in my district office down in Lower Manhattan, witnessed ICE officers waiting for immigrants to come out of a courtroom. These are immigrants who have asylum applications. And I'm sure you agree with me that asylum is a lawful pathway to immigrate to this country. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
So in order to make these immigrants here unlawfully, the DHS is now dismissing their cases, their own removal proceedings against them, to void out the asylum process, the asylum claim. That way, when they go downstairs in the elevator, there are ICE agents that can be there and to arrest them and put them in expedited removal. And they don't have an asylum claim that is live anymore because they've just voided it out. These are non-criminal, these are non-violent immigrants who are here going through lawful process. And this is who the Trump administration is going after every single day. It's a disgrace. You said you were going to go after the worst of the worst. You were going to go after convicted criminals. You're here questioning about all these criminals. You're going after people who actually are going through the lawful process you say they should. But just because Donald Trump and Stephen Miller need to bump up their numbers because they can't do a good enough job in actually finding convicted criminals, you're going after moms, dads, separating parents from children. You have a voice, Republicans. Speak up. I yield back.
Now Chair recognizes Mr. Jack.
Is he here?
Okay. Mr. McGuire from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a yes or no question, hopefully fast because I don't have much time. So each witness one at a time. If you break the law, are you a criminal? Can you guys answer that quickly? We don't have much time.
In certain circumstances, many circumstances, yes.
Yes. If you come across our border illegally, breaking our law to come across, are you a criminal? Yes.
If you speed, are you a criminal? I mean,
that's the law. That's a crime.
Okay.
So if you come across the border illegally, you're a criminal. Just want to see if we can get that straight. All right, Governor Pritzker, are illegal aliens counted in the U.S. Census?
Every person in the United States is counted.
The census decides how many members each state gets in the U.S. House of Representatives. Year after year, tens of thousands of U.S. citizens are fleeing the state of Illinois. It ranks only behind Governor Hochul's New York and Governor Newsom's California. You all are protecting and harboring illegal aliens for political purposes. Governor Pritzker, would you support prohibiting illegal aliens from being counted in the census, yes or no?
Your numbers are wrong, sir.
Would you, yes or no?
Your numbers are wrong, sir.
Would you support prohibiting illegal aliens from being counted in the census? Would you? Or is harboring illegal aliens part of the strategy to get more Democrats in Congress? The bottom line is this: all illegal aliens have committed a crime and should be deported. Any additional act of violence committed by an illegal alien is entirely preventable. All sanctuary jurisdictions are unlawful. Each of you are breaking the law. And my message to you, or the message from the people, is you need to get it straight. Governor Walz, just over 3 weeks ago, you compared ICE agents to Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo. Governor, do you regret those comments?
I regret that law enforcement is not following best practices, showing who they are, not taking people off the street, not giving due process.
We
It
would
puts
not
all
have
of
a
us at
country
risk.
without our men and women in law enforcement. Yes,
That's
or no?
correct,
Did you
and those
know
who show
ICE
their
officers
faces.
are faced? Did you know ICE officers are facing 413% increase in assaults?
Don't wear the masks, identify yourself, and work with local law enforcement.
You guys are doxing them. All right, your attacks on ICE officers are putting our law enforcement in deadly situations. It led to destructive riots breaking out in Los Angeles last weekend. President Trump had no choice but to step up and stop Los Angeles from burning buildings to the ground. Did you see videos of rioters throwing rocks through the windows of police officers' vehicles while they were driving on the highway? Did you guys see that? We wouldn't have a country without our men and women in law enforcement. In 2023, you signed legislation to expand eligibility to illegal aliens for taxpayer-funded health care, Minnesota driver's license, and free college tuition. America Last policies. Let's take a look at some of the illegal aliens you so boldly want to support with taxpayer funds. I'll probably say his name wrong, but Abrahashad Alimi, illegal alien from Somalia. Criminal history includes convictions of murder, DUI, and disorderly conduct. Eric Martinez Mondragon, illegal alien from Mexico and known member of 18th Street Gang. He served time in robbery and possession of a firearm. And Marco Granda, illegal alien from Ecuador. He was convicted for criminal sexual conduct of a child. The taxpayer-funded incentives you are providing in Minnesota bring in vicious thugs who are robbing, raping, and killing your citizens. The American people are tired of these America Last Marxist policies. We need more patriotism. You know, when I look at a MAGA, to me it means make America great again for all Americans, regardless of party, race, religion, or creed. America first, and that's why we won the presidency and we got the Senate and the House. If you had a basketball team and you hate your basketball team, you will never win. And we have a heart and love all people of the world, but if we can't take care of our country, if we're allowing these illegal criminal aliens to rob, rape, and kill the American people, that is wrong, and that's why we won, and if you guys keep that up, we'll keep winning.
Congressman, can I respond to the two cases in Minnesota? I think it's important to the hearing we're having. You want to know what we're doing. Mr. Alami was held in Freeborn County Jail.
So,
straight resources.
Governor
paid for
Hochul,
that.
Debrina Quam fell asleep on a subway in New York. While she was asleep on a train, she was set on fire and killed by an illegal alien from Guatemala. This could have been prevented. And what upsets me or strikes me the most is that in Democrat-run cities, people are so desensitized by the violence and the policies that people just stood by and watched that happen. What can we do better?
The entire situation sickens me to know that that happened in our state. I abhor all crimes, and that one was particularly heinous. And that's why my law enforcement are dedicated to keeping the streets, subways, and communities of our state safe. It's my number one priority. It's how I've invested enormous amounts of resources. And just for the record, we do cooperate in criminal identification, prosecution, and removal of individuals who commit crimes who are not in this country legally. We want them deported. We cooperate with ICE every day of the week to make our streets safer. I'm not sure why that's not breaking through in this hearing. How many times can we say that? We're not supporting this. We don't want these individuals here. We abhor this violence and crime. So that's the message should be the takeaway. How can we work together? How can you do your job and help us secure the border and have more legal pathways for people who want to be here legally and contribute to our economy, but not the criminals. We are not a sanctuary for any criminals.
Yield back.
Gentleman, time's expired. Now, Chair recognizes Ms. Morrison from Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the witnesses for being here today, especially you, Governor Walz. It's great to see you as ever. Welcome back to the People's House. Thank you for your distinguished service in the National Guard, 24 years, I believe. Thank you for your service here in Congress and as our governor. I'm sorry you haven't received the warmest welcome here today, but I'd like to start by taking a moment to correct the record on a few points. I think all of us here would agree that violent criminals who aren't citizens shouldn't be in this country, full stop. But that's not what this hearing is about. This hearing is about intimidation and striking fear in immigrant communities. This hearing, unfortunately, is not about moving forward with the comprehensive immigration reform our country so desperately needs. It's about distracting the American people from the disaster that has been the first few months of the Trump administration and his Republican majority in Congress. Much like our state, my congressional district is diverse. I represent many immigrant families who call our community home, and we welcome them because they make our community stronger. I recently had the honor of attending a naturalization ceremony where we welcomed new Americans from 85 different countries. It was an incredibly moving day, an auditorium full of new Americans who were so excited and proud to join our great American project. The room was full of hope and patriotism. I could not have been more proud to welcome them and to participate in that day. We are a country of immigrants. It is what makes us strong and dynamic and unique in the world. My colleague's characterization of our state bears no resemblance to reality. Would you agree, sir? Minnesota is an incredible state with a wealth of business, industry, natural resources, beauty, and rich diversity. And it's a state where working families thrive. As you know, Governor, we worked together for 6 years when I was in the state legislature, and I am so proud of what we accomplished during that time. We delivered for the people of Minnesota the largest middle-class tax cut in the history of our state, historic investments in education, created a paid family and medical leave programs that allows working parents to care for their children and their loved ones, codifying the right to comprehensive reproductive health care, and providing school breakfast and lunches for K through 12 students so no child in Minnesota goes hungry. If we want to talk about protecting our children and families, let's talk about the chaotic tariff war President Trump started, which is serving only to make life less affordable for families and is decimating small businesses. Let's talk about the 16 million people who are going to lose their health care, or who are going to have their health care taken away from them by the Republicans and their ridiculously named Big Beautiful Bill. Let's talk about the millions of children who will go hungry if the Republicans are successful in taking away their food assistance. Governor Walz, since my Republican colleagues want to talk about threats to our children and families, let's talk about food insecurity. It's now been over 2 years since you signed the school meals legislation into law. What has been the impact of this program on fighting child hunger in Minnesota?
Yeah, well, thank you, Congresswoman, and we miss you in Minnesota, but glad you're here. Well, the direct impact to families is a savings of about $1,700 a year to those families that they're able to see, and mostly middle class. But the real impact is on educational achievement. Last year, Minnesota was able to notch the highest graduation rates in our state history. We also see school attendance rates go up. We see better behaviors, less discipline from it. So it's a smart investment. It's the right thing to do. And the payoff for Minnesota is we have a healthier, better educated workforce, which is why Minnesota almost always ranks near the top in quality of life indicators.
Thank you, Governor. Now I want to talk more about the Republican plan to take food assistance away from our children and families. If their budget becomes law, it will be the biggest cut to SNAP in history and jeopardize food assistance for millions of families across the country, including 100,000 Minnesotans, many of whom are children. Would you agree that the Republican proposal to cut SNAP is one of the biggest threats facing children and families in Minnesota right now?
Yes, coupled with Medicaid and Medicare cuts.
And also, Governor Walz, I just want to give you a moment to, if there's anything you'd like to clarify that's been said in this unbelievable committee hearing today. I don't even know what the adjective is.
Well, thank you, Congresswoman. And we have like 30 seconds. Look, we're here to work with you. You've heard time and time again. We have a job to do as governors. The federal government has a job to do. Not doing ICE's job is not interference or not wanting to get these people. And the gentleman asked the question and then left. The gentleman he brought up with, we held him, we paid for it, we called DHS before he was released. The second one he mentioned, DOC called DHS prior to his release. We do that every single time in Minnesota. That law has been on the books for many years, and that's how we implement it. So I just don't understand why we don't want to work together to be successful. None of us want the criminals on the street, but I certainly want immigrants in Minnesota who are contributing to our quality of life.
Gentlelady's time's expired.
Thank you, Governor.
Chair recognizes Ms. Bobert from Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Los Angeles riots are certainly a shameful explosion of lawlessness that we are once again seeing. The narrative has changed in these riots, but it's certainly the same type of actors. We're seeing businesses torched, cars torched, families uprooted, certainly communities that are scared. And this is by no means a peaceful protest. It is absolute chaos, and rioters don't get a free pass to burn down cities just simply because they're mad, because they are mad that our nation's laws are being upheld, that our federal agents are upholding their oath and doing what they were hired to do. Our first responders deserve respect. They do not deserve to have rocks thrown at them and to be injured. But, I mean, let's be honest, this violence didn't really spark in a vacuum. Sanctuary policies are a magnet for trouble. They shield criminals, undermine the rule of law. And, governors, I've sat here and I've heard you today. You say that safety is your number one priority. You want your communities safe. You want your people safe. And, Governor Hochul, you just asked, how can we work together to ensure that that happens? Well, that's exactly what we want to do in this hearing. We want to work together. We want to talk to you about your sanctuary policies that are actually preventing us from working with you to keep your community safe, because we want them safe as well. I have the same policies in Colorado that restrict our local law enforcement officers from coordinating with federal agents. And some of my counties have issued lawsuits to try to end that. But this is serious, and we owe it to every American to restore safety and enforce our laws. It's been stated that this is a federal law, and it's not your job to uphold the federal law. Well, we're not asking you to uphold it. We're just asking you to kind of step out of the way and allow the federal government to do the job, to uphold these laws. When you have someone, don't wait until they commit a violent, heinous crime before we know their immigration status. So now we're seeing these riots everywhere. We've heard in 2020 that everything was mostly peaceful as cities burned down, as people lost their lives, as law enforcement officers lost their lives. So I just want to ask you three governors, yes or no, is the destruction of private and governmental property, is that something that fits under your definition of a peaceful protest? Governor Walz, yes or no?
No, it does not.
Thank you. Governor Pritzker?
I find it hard to believe that you're lecturing us about peaceful protest. Look at what happened January 6th here at the Capitol.
No, what we're seeing in L.A. is an insurrection. You want to talk about an insurrection? This is an absolute insurrection.
You don't understand what insurrection is when people are trying to overturn an election here at the Congress.
I started this off
showing you
were here.
They were attacking you, by the way.
I would expect the same.
I'm answering your question. It is outrageous that you are asking us these questions. Is it peaceful when you're the one condoning pardoning of people who attack
private and government property
right here at our Capitol?
Governor Hochul, it's been a long day. Does that fit under your definition of a peaceful protest, the destruction of private and government property?
No, and we feel for the business owners in the community for what's going on there.
So do we.
This is a narrow scope of people, and the vast majority are peaceful. Would lighting police cars on fire fit under the definition of a peaceful protest? No, we reject that. No one should be lighting police cars on fire.
I'm opposed to violence in any form. Yes.
Governor Walz?
Yeah, we reject that.
Okay. Throwing bricks or large rocks at police officers? Is that peaceful?
It is not.
Is that peaceful, Governor?
Whether it's in Los Angeles or here in Washington at the Capitol, no.
Yeah, that didn't happen here. Governor Hochul?
Rejected.
It actually did, but no, it's not acceptable.
Okay. Governor Pritzker, you have you or have you not called for mass protests and mobilization and disruption?
Indeed. Microphones, megaphones, going to the ballot box.
Well, they're responding in a much different way, are they not? President Trump also asked for people to peacefully make their voices heard. So it's okay for you to say that and hold that standard, but President Trump has a different standard when he actually makes the claim.
Inciting riots at the Capitol,
and you said you want mass protests,
mobilizations,
and disruption as a response to President Trump's policies. I just think that this is all hypocritical. You've called in your National Guard. You don't want President Trump to come in and enforce the rule of law, to keep communities safe, and your destructive policies are harming American citizens. We should not have to wait until violence is committed to find out their legal status. We have 2 million unknown gotaways because of Joe Biden's administration, and we have got to find them and get them out of America. And I thank President Trump and his administration for doing just that. I yield.
Gentlelady yields. Chair recognizes Mr. Craig from Minnesota.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for allowing me to wave on to this committee today. I think if I were a permanent member, I'd have a permanent headache.
Well, you won't have to worry about it, but
Governor
go ahead.
Walz, it is so good to see you today. Let me start by saying that we should all be against chaos. We all are for a safe and secure border and an orderly immigration system. What we're seeing now, though, is chaos out of the current administration with their blatant disregard for due process and their indiscriminate immigration executive orders. In fact, the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security had to take down its posted sanctuary jurisdictions list because it created mass confusion in Minnesota for local officials and was opposed by local law enforcement. And so, Governor Walz, let me just start, just so we know the record is correct. I didn't think Minnesota was a sanctuary state. Is Minnesota a sanctuary state, Governor?
We are not. The legislature has passed no such law, and I have signed no such law, and we follow all federal law.
Thank you, sir. That list included 20 counties when it came out across Minnesota without any rhyme or reason, including LeSueur County, which I represent. I've inquired into why they are listed from DHS, but still absolutely no answers. Governor Walz, I thought it might be helpful to point out that according to the FBI's own 2023 data, Minnesota has fewer violent incidents per 100,000 than states such as Tennessee, Louisiana, Missouri, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, I'm going to repeat that again, Georgia, and Ohio. Why do you think that our state has been able to maintain a lower crime rate than other states?
Well, thank you, Congresswoman. And we are at a 30-year low on serious crimes. And as you said, we consistently rank below. And I think that's because we invest, as we have, historic investments in law enforcement. But law enforcement works with the community. There's a process in place. We know who they are. They work hand in hand. We make sure that those laws are followed. And we also have policies where we show compassion to our neighbors. And it's not chaos, as you said. It's done right. So I am grateful for the law enforcement who does that work. But I'm also grateful to the legislature and my administration who have put in historic amounts of help to make sure they're able to deliver those services. And they are the ones that are best trained to do it. And the case that you brought up of listing these, in Minnesota, counties can go above the federal floor. If they want to issue detainers, they certainly can. Many of those counties that were listed on there would fit the definition of everyone on this side of the aisle is asking for, and they're doing that. Nothing prohibits them in Minnesota from doing that, and yet they ended up on the list. It caused great chaos, and law enforcement themselves, and as you heard earlier, Sheriff's Association issuing, that they can't be done this way.
Thank you, Governor. Earlier today, I spoke with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, and I think all of us here share the goals of lowering cost for our constituents and growing the economy. According to a Minnesota Chamber Foundation report from this February, Minnesota's immigrant labor force participation rate was over 74%, well above the national average. And they fill important jobs in our agriculture, healthcare, and manufacturing sectors. Governor Walz, how can we ensure Minnesota remains a state to attract the talent we need and a strong economy?
We invest in our people. We make sure we remain the #1 healthcare state. We make sure that people are safe in their communities. We talk about focusing on the work that the State Patrol keeps our roads safest. Top 3 state for the lowest number of traffic accidents. That's what they should be focusing on. Investing, and as the Chamber is focusing on, Minnesota's #4 in Fortune 500 per capita, and we were ranked 6th best state for business. Continue to have a well-educated, a healthy, safe, and make sure we're investing in those opportunities for people. That's all we're asking, and we're asking that the federal government do their job. You continue to ask states to do ICE job. They are free to do their job in Minnesota, but they're asking us to do the job when we're doing everything we can to help, but we have all of the other responsibilities of educating, of public safety, of roads, of transportation, of water infrastructure. And that's why Minnesota remains a top state, because we invest in our people, we invest in their growth, we invest in their families.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate this. And Mr. Lynch, I'll yield the last 20 seconds to you if you've got that.
Thank you. I'm happy to take that. Thank you very much, Representative. For this 12 seconds, I just want to read. This is from the Minnesota Reformer from February 12th, 2025. The sanctuary bill that was offered in the Minnesota legislature is already dead, as House Speaker says it doesn't have the votes. So this was an attempt to actually make Minnesota a sanctuary state, and it, like the Speaker said, didn't have the votes and died very early in the process.
And we got to the business of balancing our budget and investing in all of the other things we needed to do.
Gentlemen, ladies, time's expired. Chair recognizes Ms. Miller from Illinois.
Thank you, Chairman. Governor Pritzker, Illinois is at a crisis point. Illegal aliens in our state have overwhelmed local communities and schools, causing untold pain and suffering while costing the Illinois taxpayers billions. Governor, in a recent report by Capital News of Illinois, you called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to submit the Capital News of Illinois report titled Trump's 100 Days. Pritzker calls for mass mobilization as he grows his national profile.
Without objection, so ordered.
Governor, before we go any further, will you commit today to working with the Trump administration and ICE to ensure that the violence we've seen in Los Angeles does not occur in Chicago or anywhere else in our state? Yes or no?
Thank you, Congresswoman Miller. We work every day with the federal government
yes
to
or
keep
no,
our
sir?
streets safe.
Will you commit to working with the Trump administration?
We do all the time work with the federal government, law enforcement,
Okay,
constantly.
I'm taking that as a yes. Governor, you said earlier this afternoon that you were willing to, and I quote, stand in the way of Tom Holman, end quote, who, I would like to note, is carrying out federal law. I have before me numerous examples of illegal alien violence in Illinois, but I want to highlight the story of Joe Abraham, whose daughter was tragically murdered by an illegal alien in central Illinois. Under your watch, sir. I will now read his account. Hello, my name is Joe Abraham. I am the father of 3, and Katie was my youngest. Katie had a beautiful soul, a sharp wit, and a huge personality. She loved life, and she lived it with authenticity, humor, and heart. She was the kind of person who succeeded at anything she put her mind to. She had a future full of promise. She was everything to our family. In the early hours of Sunday, January 19th, Katie was riding in a Honda Civic with 4 friends. They were stopped at a red light when their car was struck from behind by an SUV traveling 78 miles per hour. The driver didn't brake, he didn't swerve, he just slammed into them. The driver had previously been deported and was in the country illegally using an alias. He was allegedly intoxicated. After the crash, he fled the scene on foot without calling 911, without offering any help to the 5 women he had just hit. Katie died at the scene. Another young woman passed away the next day at the hospital. Instead of staying to face what he had done, the driver fled Urbana, made his way to Chicago, and then boarded a bus headed to Mexico. Thankfully, he was captured before fleeing the country. We share Katie's story, not just to honor her memory, but to raise awareness and to seek justice. No family should have to endure this type of loss. Sir, the family is here. The father is here. Would you like to apologize to Katie's family? Feel free to direct your comments to me.
I am very sorry for their loss. I really am.
I can only imagine what other instances have taken place but have not been reported. You have stated that Illinois will not allow local police departments to assist ICE as they work to address the illegal immigration crisis that you helped to create. In light of the crimes that I have mentioned, do you stand by your policy of tying the hands of Illinois law enforcement? Yes or no, sir?
You know, Congresswoman Miller, I am
Yes or
not
no,
going
sir?
to be lectured to by somebody who extols
reclaiming
the
my
virtue
time.
of
I'm reclaiming
Adolf
my
Hitler,
time, Chairman.
of somebody who
In
has allowed the
2024,
pardoning of January 6th.
I'm reclaiming my time. In 2024, after the presidential election, you stated on MSNBC that, and I quote, I am going to do everything that I can to protect our undocumented immigrants, end quote. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to submit a Fox News report into the record titled, Dem Governor JB Pritzker vows to do everything I can to protect our undocumented immigrants.
Congresswoman, I was talking about the people who have lived in our state for decades
These
now.
policies are not only deadly, but they have cost Illinois taxpayers billions to the tune of $3 billion since 2022. Governor, your state budget doesn't balance without massive yearly tax increases. This year, you hiked taxes by $800 million. Your budgets fund the services of illegal
That's inaccurate,
aliens, while
Congresswoman.
Americans
Again,
are left behind.
inaccurate.
With many
Nearly everything is
choosing to flee our
mischaracterized
state.
in your statement.
Governor, I judge you based on your actions, not on your words. And from what I can tell, you are doing everything in your power to roll out the red carpet for illegal aliens to protect them, all at the expense of working people of Illinois. Your policies have been disastrous for our state, and they would be disastrous for our country. And with that, I yield back.
Your failures are a disaster for this
yields
country.
back. Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Superman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I first want to say that what happened this afternoon, this afternoon's manhandling of Senator Alex Padilla, after he sought to speak at a public press conference, was wrong and should be condemned by both parties, by every member in this chamber. But it follows a pattern in this administration of weaponizing law enforcement and using excessive force to attack peaceful protests and political opponents. And it's terrible. I mean, you know, we're talking about what's going on in sanctuary states, quote unquote. But you know, I live in Virginia, and we're not a sanctuary state. But what is happening is that our sheriff's office has made a decision to participate in the 287G program, and basically working with ICE to show up in schools, show up in businesses, and try to basically attack kids, right? Detain kids. And this is wrong. And this is not what our country is about. And so I do not want us to be supporting these types of actions. Yesterday in Sterling, Virginia, we had masked men show up to a courthouse and detain people and arrest people. And a lot of this is peaceful, and this again follows this pattern of weaponizing law enforcement and weaponizing the DOJ and other places to attack political opponents, attack peaceful protests, and to go around trying to make a political point. And because I think that's what this is really about. This is about politics, and this is about using law enforcement to show strength, but that's not strength. That's not strength. And so the other thing about this is none of this is making our communities safer, and none of this is good for our country. And so I want to ask Governor Walz, do these raids and do these actions and this use of law enforcement, is it making the folks in Minnesota safer?
Well, thank you, Congressman. In my opinion, no. It's causing chaos and fear amongst folks and characterizing folks who are waiting on asylum claims, who are trying to become naturalized. It causes chaos. And the other thing it does, it causes local law enforcement. They lose trust in the community. It puts them at risk. And the lack of coordination that we hear, that no calls are coming in, we always coordinate. And in the past, Democratic and Republican administrations have coordinated with us. We're not seeing it. It's creating chaos and fear. And yes, get these stories of these violent criminals. We hold them. We call DHS, but those violent criminals aren't at a preschool. That's what we have to get right. Go after why you're doing this. Get us a bipartisan bill that makes sure that folks can process and be documented, and let's make this country prosperous and continue to have a country.
Exactly, because that's a great point, because if we really want to solve immigration, why don't we do a bipartisan immigration reform bill? We can strengthen our border. We can find a path for those who've been here for a long time. We can actually solve this problem in Congress, but instead we're going around with masked men, intimidating people, throwing U.S. senators to the ground, and not solving any problem. And Governor Pritzker, I've talked to a lot of businesses in my community who are really concerned about what's going on, and this is not good for our economy either. And so I'd ask you, Governor Pritzker, what do you feel, is this good for your state? Is this making folks in your state safer or well off or better off?
Congressman, thank you. And no, this is making us worse off. It's actually harming public safety. It's frightening our communities. And frankly, if you're one of the people, the U.S. citizens that are getting taken off the streets, or people who are here in this country legally taken off the streets, I mean, imagine what effect that has on the rest of the population. And in my state, we reject that. I mean, the values of the people of the state of Illinois reject that. And I just want to say, because Congresswoman Miller would not allow me to, I just want to say very importantly that anyone who is condoning the $400 million airplane going to the President of the United States from the Qataris, who would spy on us in an instant if they were able to do this, anybody who's condoning the President of the United States accepting the Chinese Communist Party money to his family through his meme coin. I mean, that is corruption, and yet that is what Congresswoman Miller is condoning. She's the one who thinks it's okay to pardon people who attack police right here at the Capitol. Thank you for giving me that moment.
Yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair recognizes Ms. Fishback from Minnesota.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to be waved on today, Mr. Chair. And I will just say that oversight is far livelier than Ways and Means. But, and Governor Walz, I want to say I thank you for being here, because I know you've been very, very busy running around the country, giving speeches and having town halls in Republican districts. Yeah, well, you were running around, though, I know, while they were trying to negotiate that. It's my time, Mr. Governor Walz. It's my time. But there has been a lot of discussion and questions about policies that provide benefits for illegal aliens. And I understand, Governor, that you're going to say Minnesota is not a sanctuary state per se because the legislation was not passed. And just a yes or no question, Ranking Member Lynch had mentioned that there was a bill that was introduced for a sanctuary state this year in the Minnesota legislature. Would you have signed that bill? Did you support that bill?
Oh, thousands of bills introduced, hypothetical. We don't have it. I operate under the same law you operate under.
Okay. Thank you, Governor Walz. But Governor Walz, we all know that you probably had some opinion on that bill. You're just choosing not to answer because the answer was probably yes. You would have signed that bill if it had passed. So, but like Mr. Emmer, Mr. Crane, I think Mr. McGuire, a whole bunch of them mentioned the policies that Minnesota has. So yes, I understand, not a sanctuary state per se, but the policies are certainly making it into, I think, as I recall, they mentioned driver's license for all. They mentioned the free tuition for illegal immigrants. They mentioned the Medicaid benefits. So you in essence create a sanctuary state.
The sheriff supported the driver's license bill. The hospitals and others.
Governor Walz, I am certainly aware of that. I served many years in the legislature. I still keep an eye. I have many friends there. I understand that. But in essence, they are creating a sanctuary state in practice. And so we are going to talk a little bit about the legislature, because just earlier this week, both chambers of the Minnesota legislature passed HF 1. And you're probably familiar with it. I don't know if you've signed it yet or not, but it repeals Minnesota care eligibility for illegal immigrants, adults ages 18 and older. And with that recent repeal of eligibility for illegal immigrants, a policy that initially, it was after my time, was enacted in your time, 2023 under your administration, now being reversed with those budget negotiations. I was just wondering, first of all, do you know how many illegal immigrants were covered and are currently covered in Minnesota with Medicaid?
I don't have the exact number. It's not Medicaid. It's state that does this through Minnesota Care.
Okay, well, but you still don't know how many. So
I don't
all
have
of those negotiations you were deeply involved in earlier that you mentioned you were deeply involved in, that number never came up?
I don't have it in front of me right now.
Okay.
So we can certainly get it to you.
I would love it. I would love to have that. But do you support, I mean, I understand. Did you support that provision that removing the illegal immigrants?
I will sign it into law.
No, did you support it during the negotiations?
Do I support it? I'm going to sign the bill.
But there's negotiations. So I guess what I'm
We're very
hearing,
good
though,
at it. That's why we have a balanced budget.
You didn't
And so I negotiated with the Republicans. Do I think it makes sense? Look, you know, Congresswoman, that federal law requires us to provide health care to people when they show up in emergency rooms. That's why the hospitals have uncompensated care.
Reclaiming my time, because you're trying to change the subject, because I asked you very specifically, during negotiations, did you support the provision to eliminate illegal immigrants from health care?
It's a question that makes no sense. I support it at the end of the day in a negotiation, which I agree to and will sign.
Thank you, Governor. I mean, you were here in Congress. You understand what reclaiming your time means. Yeah, you understand that. But I guess I will move on because, you know, there was concerns about SNAP provisions being cut and all kinds of, but you supported that. I mean, you supported that over the over government. Over the health care to illegal immigrants. I guess I'm confused about, because you had other cuts you had to make. So what did you, all of the things that you guys have been talking about with law enforcement,